On today's episode of the DuckZone503 Podcast, I'm joined by a super special guest today, and we're going to preview and predict this Week 7 matchup of number 8 Oregon at number 7 Washington. We'll also be giving our 3 keys to the game, and then finally, our final score prediction. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Let's get into it, people.
Welcome to the DuckZone503 Podcast. Talking all things Oregon football. With your host, Dominiqk Peterson. Let's go.
Welcome into today's edition of the DuckZone503 Podcast. The date is Wednesday, October 11th, 2023, and I am happy to be with you. We have a huge matchup on our hands, folks, the biggest matchup in its 125-year rivalry. For the first time ever, number 8 Oregon and number 7 Washington will both be ranked in the top 10 when they meet in Seattle October 14th for the 115th game in this series. This is the most excited and pumped up for a game that I've been in a while. This is so exciting to see these two teams in specific at the position they're in at this time. We all know this is the final year of the Pac-12, and then this rivalry is going to continue on into the Big Ten. This game will also have Heisman conversation written all over it. Bo Nix versus Michael Penix Jr., two of the best quarterbacks in the country dueling it out. 12:30 p.m. Pacific time kickoff. 3:30 Eastern time kickoff, so you know the whole country is going to be tuning into this game. Both teams will have to go play USC, so whoever wins this game will definitely be taking that driver's seat for the Pac-12 title race. Man, oh man, who better to preview and predict this game with the one, the only. I got Hood Husky here, people. Straight up, man. Washington favorite, some might say, right?
Some might say.
Hood Husky's here, man.
Appreciate the invitation, man. I reached out to you a little earlier too. Just was letting you know that hey, if you ever wanted to collab, I was more than willing, man, and I appreciate the invite for sure.
Oh yeah, man, I love it, and you know all about this Washington team, so I'm very excited to have you on. Very excited for this matchup. You can tell I'm a little pumped and ready to go, so it's gonna be exciting. Before we get started, I always like to start out. Where could just people find your work? If some Oregon fans want to get the intel on Washington every year, we're moving into the Big Ten. If they want to get plugged in for a Husky podcast, where can we find your work?
So just like my personal stuff, obviously Twitter, and then I have a YouTube page as well, Neighborhood Husky. It's nothing super crazy or elaborate, but I'll definitely be putting a little bit more content and work into that. But as far as my collaborative work, I'm a contributor on Sound the Siren Podcast with my man Hooligan7 as our host there. But yeah, you can find me there contributing to that podcast as well as Twitter and YouTube for sure. Spotify, Apple Music, I believe still Anchor. Yes, sir.
Bam. Make sure you guys go check him out. Go make sure you guys subscribe here as well, the DuckZone503 Podcast, if you're not already. I'm trying to give you guys at least 2 podcasts a week. So I'm trying to give you content, 2 podcasts a week, full game day experience vlogs at all the Oregon home games. And guess what, guys? I will be in Seattle, Washington. I'll be at the game. We're going to be headed there. We're going to be vlogging it all. It's going to be an awesome experience. So all my Duck fans out there in Seattle, say what's up. All my Husky fans that want to say what's up. I got a lot of Husky friends out there. My dad lives out there, so it's going to be an amazing time. We got ESPN College Game Day. We got Josh Pate's Every Given Saturday tour. And yeah, guys, the DuckZone503 Podcast will be there in Seattle. Got to ask you, Hood Husky, are you going to be there at the game, or are you going to be watching from home? What are you going to be doing here?
Oh, I'm definitely pulling up. Come on now. I couldn't
go.
Miss this one, big dog. I'm definitely pulling up. I got my tickets a couple days ago, so I'm locked in. It's just the game day attendance. It's just the game day attendance. Am I gonna make it to game day is the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah, you got to be real dedicated for that. I don't know if I'll be there for that. I want to do it, but man, I'm hearing you got to be there at like 3 a.m. I'm like, whew, yeah, man. Some people camp out too.
I went there in 2016 and I camped out and stuff like that, and it was like crazy rain. I don't know if I'm doing that cold rain again. So.
Yeah, man, it looks to be awesome. So hey, man, maybe we can catch up at the game. Hopefully, I'll try to hit you up. Yeah, that'll be dope. All right, guys. We also talk Pac-12 ball here as well, giving you recruit interviews for Oregon. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. If you're listening on Spotify, rate the podcast, all that good stuff. I think we're sitting around 912 subscribers on YouTube, trying to get to 1,000, trying to get there. So tell your friends and family, your pets, I don't care. Tell everyone to hit that sub button. Appreciate everybody who does. All right, let's get into it. If we're going to talk about this rivalry, let's just quickly recap the history of this matchup and why this heated rivalry is so heated between these two schools. So, Washington leads the series all time, okay, by 13 games. They're up 61 wins, 48 losses, and 5 ties in this series. On top of that, as you can see, Washington also leads in categories such as national championships, claim natties, as some might say. I don't know. We could poke the bear a little bit.
You all good.
Conference championships that lead there, bowl record, NFL draft picks, and a few others. The only category showing here where Oregon has the advantage here is Heisman winners, which was Marcus Mariota for Oregon. So let's start here in the 70s. We can go even more back than that, but I just want to start here. You can see a lot of purple on the left side there, and that's telling you that Washington dominated the Ducks in the 1970s, going 7-3 in that decade. And then we move forward here in the 1980s. Again, Washington dominated, going 7-3 once again. The Huskies are now 14-6 in those last 2 decades combined against the Ducks. And then we get into the 90s, right, where things started to change a little bit with the Oregon football program. The football team started winning consistently enough to actually beat Washington in 1994 when Kenny Wheaton made that famous the pick play. They started competing for Rose Bowls that year, and Phil Knight, Nike dollars came in. The rest was history. Washington started 4-0 in the early 90s, but then went 2-5 the rest of the decade. Then we go into the 2000s, right? 2010, something that Washington fans for generations have not seen here. Oregon goes on an 8-2 run when, the trajectory of these two football programs were going in opposite directions. Washington was going downhill at this time. Oregon had Mike Bellotti, Chip Kelly as their head coaches in this era. 2008, Washington went 0-12, one of their worst teams they ever had in program history. And then we go into 2010 here. And into the current era. Oregon went on the longest winning streak the rivalry ever saw from 2004 to 2015 for the Ducks. They went 12-0, undefeated, beating Washington handily in every matchup on that run. And then 2016 comes. This is when things start to get interesting here. One of the worst Duck football teams in recent memory ran up against a college football playoff-bound Washington team, and the Husky hung 70 points in Autzen Stadium. And since 2016, guys, the series is 3-3. So it feels like the Huskies are starting to make their way back into relevance, and Kalen DeBoer has revived this great program that Washington is. I think that's what makes this rivalry so great. It's simply hate and respect with these two football teams. It's hate because these one of these two teams always seem to be good. The other seems to be bad. And it's been like that for decades at a time. But it's also respect with these teams as well, because when Washington was dominant in the 70s and 80s and winning national championships and going undefeated, being number one, all the good stuff, that's exactly what Oregon wanted to be back in that time. Now that Oregon's finally made it to the cream of the crop the last 2-3 decades and taken the spotlight in the Pacific Northwest from the Huskies, Husky fans are looking at Oregon like, y'all ain't all that. Hold on, man. We were all that. That was us. So I think it's even better now. I think it's even great that both these teams, for the first time ever, top 10. It's going to be epic. I think these are what makes rivalry so great. What do you think makes this rivalry so great? What's your take on the history of this matchup? And, what do you think? What are you looking forward to going into the Big Ten?
I'll say personally, I make jokes about how it's not really as serious as a rivalry as I'll say like Wazoo is, and how we take it serious. And that's just mainly because Oregon and UW rarely are both good at the same time. So whenever they're playing each other, it's always one team is, for the most part, a significant favorite. So yeah, I think this year specifically, both teams being top 10, and then obviously since Chris Peterson's been around, it's been a far more competitive game. And then you have a bunch of eyes on the Pac-12 this year, not only because they're good, but because of the transition into the big. So I think you were naturally going to have eyes whether all these teams are going to be good anyway. We were in the news cycle all off season, not for football, but for, realignment. So yeah, man, I really appreciate the rivalry. Growing up, I went to Eugene a lot, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 years old, visited there a lot. So I have a personal relationship with Oregon, but obviously UW's the home team. So the rivalry definitely means a lot to me. But the vitriol and the kind of back and forth in real life, I really don't do, because I got a lot of respect for both schools. But in regards to realignment, man, I'm really excited. I think everybody in the off season was really it was kind of like this fantasy. And then we saw those schedules come out, and the schedules kind of turned it to reality. Like, holy, like, oh man, this is crazy, you know. So it's looking like a lot of fun. It's looking like a lot of flyer miles are going to be kicking in for them away games. I'm super excited, man. I still play the NCAA 14, and I realigned all that, and then my schedule's hard now, brother. So I can't wait to see it in real life.
Oh yeah, man. I think the new one comes out this summer too. The updated one. So yeah, I know they keep talking about it and then they move it back. That would be dope. But yeah, I mean that Big Ten schedule, having this rivalry come, and it's kind of cool. You know, it sucks that the Pac-12 got depleted and it's not a regional thing anymore. We got to travel all the way out there, but the matchups that it brings, Ohio State, Michigan, stuff like that, and then bringing this rivalry into it that has history behind it. It's going to be awesome. Speaking about this, this matchup, what excites you the most about this matchup this year? Is it the fact that we got Bo Nix versus Michael Penix? Maybe it's a heated rivalry game for you, or is it going to go down the history books? Like, what are you most looking forward to in this matchup? What excites you most?
To be honest, it's not necessarily the game. I don't think we're going to match the excitement in the regular season of last year. I think the thing that excites me more is the fact that not only just UW and Oregon getting a fair shot at national attention and CFB media attention, but having everybody coming out. You mentioned Pate. You got College Game Day. I think I saw the list, and UW had College Game Day like 2 or 3 times, and that's wild considering that they're a top 25, top 28 team of all program of all time. So it's pretty odd that you don't come to Seattle a lot. So I think the pageantry of the game is mainly what I'm excited for, just having all eyes on us. And for both teams, win, lose, or draw, being able to show the country that, hey, we both are legitimate top 5 teams, CFP contenders. That's what I'm excited for. A little less of the game. I think last year I don't know how you top the excitement of last year. So for sure, I'm excited for the spectacle.
100%. I love it. And Kalen DeBoer, your guys' head coach, he's entering his second season here. 11-2 last year with the Huskies in his first year. Very impressive. 95-11 all-time head coaching record when I looked that up. DeBoer went 67-3 at Sioux Falls from 2005 to 2009. Then just comes out of nowhere to coach at Fresno State in 2020. Goes 3-3 in the COVID year, then 9-3 in the second season. Oregon actually played that Fresno State team in game 1 before they played Ohio State, by the way. DeBoer, he had an 11-win season his first year at Washington, gets the win in Autzen Stadium last year. Now he has, a top 10 and undefeated team. DeBoer has been a winner virtually everywhere he's been. Washington finished 4-8 just 2 years ago. What do you think DeBoer and the staff at Washington has done differently than previous coaching staffs to make this Husky team as good as it is?
What's crazy is I don't necessarily think that it was a crazy different recipe than what we're used to. If you can see kind of, I think USC was also 4-8, and they decided to hit the portal to rebuild their team overnight. And in 2022, it seemed like Kalen DeBoer prioritized buy-in, getting to make sure people didn't portal out, and telling every individual player, especially the better players, how much we value them, and getting them looking at our defensive and offensive system. So I think the cool thing about DeBoer, it's not necessarily a unique thing to our program because we did have CP before, but prioritizing like the culture in the locker room, the brotherhood, the buy-in. I think that's why you saw the 4-8 turnaround. It wasn't necessarily a bunch of personnel changes that happened. It was outside of Mike at quarterback. The roster wasn't too different. So I think a big thing for him was just kind of getting everybody bought in, and you see this year too, kind of similar process, bringing back a whole bunch of draft eligible juniors. They're seniors, super seniors now, and trying to buy for this natty.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like realize is it wasn't like USC where they completely overchanged their roster. It was just a few minor pieces changed here and there. They had the complete same roster, and I think that just goes credit to Kalen and how good of a coach he really is, man. And he's a proven winner. He has the head coaching record behind him to prove it. And he's in year one took off. And year two, he's looking this after if he wins here, you're looking at college football playoff talk easily. So looking really good. This game last year was super close. Washington won that game 37-34, upsetting the Ducks in Autzen Stadium. I honestly feel that both these teams, as good as they were last year, I think they both even taken a step forward this year, are even better versions of themselves in 2023. For the Ducks, the pass rush has been significantly upgraded. Oregon finished with just 18 sacks total last season. Well, guess what? Through 5 games, they already have 18 sacks. The front 7 totaled 8 sacks against Shedeur Sanders in that Colorado passing attack that is currently sitting at number 5 in the country. So I should also mention that the secondary for Oregon only allowed 150 yards passing from Sanders, who was averaging nearly 350 yards per game. The additions of Jordan Birch, former 5-star defensive end from South Carolina, Mateo Ugiagale, 5-star freshman, and Tatum Tuioti, the 4-star defensive end, and he's also a coach's son, which helps. Along with what Oregon kept from last season on the D-line, we got Brandon Dorless, first-team All Pac-12 D lineman, Casey Rogers, Popo Amave, all monsters with experience on this defense now, second year in Dan Lanning's system. The D-line has been a massive upgrade for the Ducks. A year ago, Michael Penix Jr. torched this secondary. Well, let me just tell you, this is a whole new secondary that this Duck football team has brought in. We got Kyrie Jackson, the transfer out of Alabama, has been our best corner so far. And Dan Lanning just said that he's ready to go in his last media interview. Oregon DB Kyrie Jackson versus Colorado had 36 coverage snaps, 2 yards allowed, 3 pass breakups, and an 88.7 coverage rate. And now I get Colorado's wide receivers are not nearly as close as what wide receiver brings to the table, but that was good to see. That gave me confidence as a Duck fan. Like, okay, the secondary, they have somebody. When Christian Gonzalez went to the first round and they were as bad as they already were last year, I was like, man, I was kind of scared. So that guy came in, and Alabama transferred, looks to be really good. Jaleel Florence is a true sophomore that has really stepped up and taken over that starting corner 2 spot. Defenses haven't really thrown his way due to really how good his coverage has been so far. Tysheem Johnson leads the team in tackles and snap count so far. He's a safety that comes over from Ole Miss. Looks to be one of the leaders in the back end of that defense, a surefire tackler as well. And Evan Williams, brother of Bennett Williams, the guy that got burnt last year on 2 key plays in last year's game. His little brother comes in. He was a transfer from Fresno State, brings lots of playing experience, and every year he's played, he's put up great numbers. He looks to be a better, faster athlete than his brother Bennett, and just a better safety overall. So Oregon's defensive stat rankings this season have been, definitely upgraded. Now it's through 5 games. Stats do not tell the whole story. I like to remind everybody of that, but it gives you a good sense of the game and what we've been doing. So the Ducks scoring defense so far is number 8 in the country, 11.8 points per game. Total defense is number 7 in the country, 255.6 yards per game. Holding teams to 153.6 yards per game in the pass. It's number 8 in the country. And like I said, 18 sacks is good for 7th in the country so far. So the defense, it's definitely been an upgrade. So if you were to ask me where the Ducks took the biggest step forward this season, I'd definitely say is the defense overall. The defense is night and day better than it was last year. And I think the Huskies are in for a real test with this defense. But look, the Ducks are in for a huge test. They have not seen this, a whole different animal of offense that they've seen all season. So this is going to tell if this defense is really real. It looks good. The stats are there, but this is a real test. Hood, I've been talking a lot, my bad, but where do you think the Huskies took the biggest where do you think the Huskies took the biggest step from last season? Where are some of the biggest improvements that you see from this Husky team from last season?
I want to point to 2 people too. You mentioned kind of Popo and or in that line. Well, I believe Popo didn't play last year, correct?
Yeah, Popo was out all last year.
And then you guys also have some I would say they're infrequent, but snaps from purchase as well. So I think you guys have definitely improved the speed and I think the skill as well on defense. But specifically with UW, I think once again, you kind of speak to that buy-in conversation on defense. I was one of the huge advocates for going out and grabbing certain portal guys to replace guys who, a lot of fans didn't feel like performed last year. But through the first 5 games now, those players have taken significant steps. I'll just point to one of Chris Peterson's kind of points. He said, it's not the development from freshman year to sophomore year or sophomore to junior. It's those upperclassmen and how they develop and how they're going to lead your team. And I think that extra year of experience is going to be the most valuable asset for us. But in regards to the defense, obviously Copp and Raylan Goforth, Zach Durfee won't be able to play in this game, but somebody else we got. Jabbar Muhammad has been a significant addition to the outside, an upgrade for sure from Jordan Perriman. This is off the top of the head. I'm trying to think. But also, too, this is the second year on the defensive line for MJ Ale. 6'6", he was 365 on the offensive side of the ball, and last year, first year defense, he's 330 now. Completely different player. So I would just personally say that the defense is second year in the system, and the majority of the people that are on the defense, it's their second year in the system. They weren't portal guys or anything like that. So if you kind of watch the 5 games, what you can see is I think the strength is in the scheme. They're really, really able to communicate much better. The first 8 games of the year, last year, they had 8 different combinations of DB based on injury and availability and things like that. And they don't have that this year, so they have a bunch of upperclassmen who communicate well. You see a lot more simulated pressures. You see a lot more kind of confusion at the front line. So I think schematically is where we took our biggest advantage, being able to do more because you have like a more cohesive defense. I don't know if you didn't speak on your offense, but I would say an obvious strength of our offense is going to be our passing game. But something that's not so obvious, and I think that's being a little underrated by UW and Oregon fans, is our offensive line, and specifically our interior offensive line. With Mateo, Julius Buelo, and Parker Brailsford, they seem to be focusing on pass protection at the beginning of the year, kind of sacrificing a little bit of the run blocking. But as Buelo's been injured, they rotated Hatchett in to guard, and they moved Parker Brailsford to center, and our run game has actually taken off. So what I'll say is, and the pass grades have kind of stayed, have plateaued. So they haven't sacrificed much in pass protection, but they've actually gotten better and opened up a lot more run angles with the 2 deeps. So I think a strength is going to actually be our offensive line as a whole, and I definitely think it's underrated, and I personally feel like the experience of it is going to be an advantage for us versus you guys' front.
100%. I think both teams, like I said, definitely took a step forward in year 2 of both respective head coaches going into the second year of the system. Sounds like the Huskies have experienced defense, a group of guys that, are juniors and seniors, and taking that next step in that year 2 of the defense schematically sounds awesome. And yeah, you pointed out Washington's offensive line, Oregon's offensive line, 2 of the best in the country. Probably a good reason why Penix and Bo Nix are, favorites in the Heisman conversation right now, because they have such great offensive lines. And their offense, you go take a look at, I think it's NCAA.com, and you go look at their stats. Oregon right now and Washington are both, Washington's number 1, Oregon's number 2 in total offense right now. So, but both upgraded defenses, both offenses, top 2 in the country. I mean, can you ask for a better matchup on paper? I mean, this is going to be awesome. Dan Lanning, he told the media, Oregon head coach Dan Lanning, in a press conference last week, that our backup running back, Noah Whittington, will most likely be out for the rest of the season due to a leg injury. Eastern Carolina guard transfer Nashad Strother appears to be making his way back into the lineup. He was a big piece of the transfer portal that people were looking at, but he's making his way in. Iowa linebacker Justin Jacobs was a huge addition through the portal. Most thought he would start here at linebacker, but he's been injured all year with the leg injury. I'm not sure if he'll be back. What's the report on the Huskies right now? How healthy are you guys coming into this matchup? You always want to see your opponent fully healthy, especially in big-time matchups like this. So how healthy are they coming in?
We're coming in pretty healthy. I think the only true questionable guys are Thule, A little bit of Asa. I believe he'll button down and play. But then obviously some guys that were mentioned earlier or have been out for a couple weeks now. We don't have, I would say, CB3 started the season, Devon Banks, who looked phenomenal in his first 2 games. So that's kind of unfortunate. But we're coming in with a solid bill of health. Our center that started the year, obviously Melee is out, but you pop in Parker Brailsford and he's not taking any type of step back. Julius Buelo is I would say the biggest wild card here, because that's going to decide whether or not what type of success in the pass game we're going to have. We're talking a 6'7", 6'8" guard who basically is a right tackle, but he's a guard, so he prioritizes pass blocking. And then your backup is going to be Gary and Hatchett, who is a whole different build. So I think that's going to impact game plan for sure. I think that's the only big one. And just speaking to you guys too, man, losing Noah is big, man. That's wildly unfortunate. I was hoping he can kind of ball out. I want you guys at full strength too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Noah, that's a big loss. The good thing is for the Ducks that Jordan James looked more than ready on PFF. He grades out real nicely. He's the most efficient running back statistically so far for us, so he looks to be more than ready. He's a true sophomore coming out of Georgia. He was a 4-star running back, so he's going to be taking the carries that Noah would have had. Bucky Irving had a huge game last year in this matchup. I think he had close to 150 yards on the ground, so he's going to be healthy. We got Jordan James, who's been looking really good, and then we got 2 freshman running backs who have not played real football yet. I don't expect them to actually get in this game, but Dante Dowdell is a 4-star. And then we got blanking on his name, Jaden Lamar from Washington. Yeah, there you go. So 4-star out of there. So I don't expect them to get in the game. They haven't really played big time football just quite yet, but you never know. If depth is needed. Nishad Strother has taken a few snaps in games, but he has not played like meaningful football. He's kind of come in and towards the end of games. And then Justin Jacobs is a wild card for us on our end. You mentioned a wild card for you guys. I'd say Justin Jacobs might be one to watch. I haven't heard anything about him coming back, but after the bye week, getting rest, he hasn't played all season. Who knows? Maybe he could surprise some things and come in for the defense. And he looks to be big, like a really big linebacker that came from the Big Ten. So that could be nice for the Ducks. You know what else could be nice, guys, is winning money and watching sports. I'm in love with Mojo Fantasy. It's a crazy new app that turns sportsbook odds and selections into fantasy contests. Here's how it works, guys. There are thousands of NFL and MLB player props. You build a portfolio, and the better your portfolio performs, the more cash you win. Pick as many props as you want and try to beat the crowd. It's a whole new way to play fantasy. The props act like stocks you can buy and sell live all game long. It's the only fantasy app that lets you make moves after the game starts, so you're not stuck with a bad pick. You can cash in on a hot start or just hang on and let them ride. Cash contests are based on real sportsbook odds. Get the same live player prop selections, odds, and cash outs as Mojo's New Jersey Sportsbook. You can trade sports just like stocks. You control the action, ride your picks, cash out, or enter new positions instantly. And there's no house advantage, guys. You beat the crowd by building the biggest portfolio to climb the leaderboard and win cash prizes. That's it. Make picks, make moves, make money. Download now on the Apple App Store and use my code DuckZone for a 100% deposit match up to $100 for your first time deposit. Link in the description for more. All right, guys, let's continue on. I got my guy, Big Hood Husky in the building here to preview and predict this top 10 matchup of Washington versus Oregon. The Washington offense right now is number 1, and the Oregon offense is number 2 in total offense, according to NCAA.com. We all know about how dangerous quarterback Michael Penix Jr. is. Just highlight some of these NFL wide receivers you guys got. Tell us what makes each one of these guys so special.
Lord have mercy. I would say Rome's an elite athlete. Coming in, he was a little bit more lean and wiry, but he had like NFL 3-cone, NFL 40, NFL vertical already. So he was an athletic specimen. And now he's just kind of refined his game. 6'3", 215, 220. His first 3 years on campus, he definitely was more of a deep ball kind of guy. They used him a little bit in regards to the possession game, but he kind of struggled with contested catches. And what you're seeing in his senior campaign is getting bigger and then prioritizing those contested catches. So he's the full package: size, speed, precision route runner. Watching him and Gonzo go head to head last year was really, really fun. So watching him and potentially Kyrie go head to head is gonna be fun. J-Mac, all-purpose weapon, ridiculously nuanced route runner, great footwork. They manipulate and put him. You'll see this kind of theme with another receiver too, but they manipulate and put him obviously in the slot, but they have him in the backfield, running routes out the backfield to match up with safeties and linebackers. Like I said, extremely nuanced route runner. Love his being a receiver. I love the head nods. I love giving the little head nods. And then we'll transition to Jeremy Bernard. My brother likes to call him Jibo, like Debo Samuel. They love to use him in the backfield, in the screen game. Real big physical kid who. Smooth runner, breaks tackles, not super extremely fast, but neither is Debo. You know what I mean? Fluid mover. And then the guy that I think you guys are very familiar with, and that's Jalen Polk. If you just watch him play, I'd say he takes his wide receiver job very seriously. And that comes to blocking, being physical blocking. That comes to his attitude and his demeanor. He's the leader in that room, gets everybody amped up, even including the other side of the ball. But in regards to his actual skill set, really solid, nuanced space finder. He's a really good space finder, and then has very deceptive speed. I believe it was Kalen DeBoer this offseason talking about how he had one of the most increased miles per hour, but you'll never be able to know based on his stride length, his arm pump. He's a really smooth mover. And I think those are going to be the primary guys that you guys will see, wide receiver 1 through 4. But we'll surprise you with 5 and on in the future.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, this is going to be a loaded matchup for the Ducks secondary, the Ducks defense. I mean, a recent memory, I think there's only about 2 teams that probably had kind of the same amount of wide receiver talent. 2019 USC had Michael Pittman Jr., Tyler Vaughns, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Velus Jones Jr., and then 2021 Ohio State. They had, Chris Olave, CJ Stroud at quarterback. And so the Ducks have played in the past, some pretty good offenses and wide receivers, but it's been a few years now. It's been a couple of years, and this looks to be, I mean, you guys got 3 NFL wide receivers. I mean, down the future, you might even have more. So this looks to be a big time matchup for the Ducks secondary. Let's talk about your guys' run game a little bit. It's not the strong suit of this offense, but you guys, it's for a reason. You guys have the best passing attack in the country, but who are some guys that do carry the rock? You guys said it has been upgraded a little bit this year. You kind of mentioned that a little bit ago, and surprisingly, you guys carried the rock a little bit more in this matchup against the Ducks last year than any other team. It felt like you guys really ran the ball pretty effectively against the Ducks too. Do you think that will be a thing that Washington will go to? Do you think a run game will be key in this matchup? And highlight some of the guys that are carrying the rock?
So I think if you look at the top 10 offenses in the country, I don't have it in front of me, but I think we have the least amount of rushing yards. So that should tell you that I would say we don't prioritize it or value it to the level that others do, but it is extremely efficient and effective. It's really an oddity for me. I don't know if you guys see me on the TL sometimes, just kind of, we need to run the ball more, and why are we running the ball? And you're sacrificing, time and game management to throw the ball when you shouldn't. So, I personally sometimes feel like they lean on the passing game and too much, and kind of the short passing game to make up for not wanting to run, but they can. If you look at the first score last year, it was a huge hole, run blocking, wide open run play. I think they're going to do the exact same thing this year. I definitely think they're going to establish the run. And if you look in regards to personnel, you'll have your bell cow. We mentioned injuries. We're missing Cam Davis from last year, who was a key cog in this game. But starter is Dylan Johnson. a really, really big kid, violent runner, a one-cut kind of guy. He's definitely going to lean on the defense for sure and be the guy to kind of break some tackles, bruise you up a little bit, make it harder to tackle in the third and fourth quarter. And then on the perimeter, you're going to have, I think they're probably going to prioritize Will Nixon, who's more of a hybrid running back receiver, playing obviously more running back full time now, but dynamic player out the backfield in the pass game and the run game. So I think we're definitely gonna, I'll say, make you guys respect it, lull you to sleep every now and then. But it's hard to, in 18 games, and it's something I say all the time, in 18 games, we've not relied on the run game in one of those games, and we're 16-2. So it's hard to say that we're gonna change things around. Ryan Grubb's very arrogant and very confident about his pass offense. So,
I went through the stats on your guys' running backs. I noticed that none of them have ran for over 100 yards in a game this season.
Yep.
Do you feel like against Oregon, do you think you guys will need a more balanced attack, or do you think it's maybe necessary for a running back to get over 100 yards in this game for Washington to win?
No. I think it is I think the way they use the running game, if you look at Arizona, it kind of caught everybody off guard, including us, because, I think Dylan ran for 91 and then had a decent amount of passing yards. And then Will ran for maybe like 30 or 40. So cumulatively, they definitely will try to prioritize most likely over 100 yards rushing. But I think they look so much for these mismatches and these matchups, and they want to do all these different types of personnel groupings to make you not know what they're doing. So it's tough for me to say, oh yeah, this guy's going to get 100 yards, because Dylan Johnson's best attributes are catching the ball and pass blocking. So it's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, he's going to run. But like I said, 18 games or 16-2 without relying on the run game heavily. So I don't think it's going to be extremely important to win the game, to have 200 yards rushing. But it's an effective running game for sure, and they make you respect it. If we're popping off 5, we're popping off 8, 2, 10, then you're going to have to respect it. And then you get guys like Ty Sheen creeping to the line. You get, Ed coming to the box as well, and then there's your one-on-ones. So I think it's going to be a little tough, especially if those DBs are put in one-on-one situations.
Yeah, that's one thing I was looking forward to in this game, is how does Oregon handle the passing attack? That's like the biggest question, right, for the defense. And the like I mentioned earlier, the front five have been really good this year. They've been night and day better. With Jordan Birch, Mateo, they have a lot more depth. They have guys that can rotate that they did not have last year, so they had to rely on Brandon Dorlus like almost every play. So I think the game plan, if you're Oregon, if I was the coach, would just rush your front five and let try to play coverage, because like you said, if you get in one-on-one position, that's going to be dangerous. That's going to be dangerous for the defense. And then that's why I was kind of asking, like, do you think the run game can come in to make those DBs kind of want to creep up or anything like that? But sounds like you guys have been pretty successful without the run game needing to be there at all. Sticking to positions on the Washington offense that may not get talked about enough. Your guys' tight end Jack Westover has 4 receiving touchdowns on the year. That's top 5 in college football. What makes Westover such a dangerous weapon? What where does he utilize the most? Is he a real red zone weapon, or is a middle of field type guy? What should Duck fans expect to see from the Huskies tight end group?
Westy, yeah, man. You nail on head, bro. Just middle of the field guy. A bailout guy for Mike, extremely reliable hands. I think he may have like 1 or 2 drops in the year, and they were kind of concentration drops, which is unfortunate. But versus Arizona, you see there's some crazy snags he's making, low snags. He's a really, really good athlete, underrated athlete, phenomenal blocker, as you'll see. You've been utilized all year as well as last year. Phenomenal blocker. I think there's a lot of they take a lot of pride in blocking in that room. And then Devin Cope's going to be your A+ athlete, who may not, hopefully don't get no pushback, but he may not be the best like tight end or pass catcher, but last week had a phenomenal hands catch, but definitely relied on to kind of stretch the field, but also an A1 run blocker. Now, I'll tell you who to kind of watch out for, and it may kind of tip off the play or things like that, is 88, Quentin Moore. When he's in the game, they typically are running the ball because he might as well be the sixth offensive lineman. He's a phenomenal pass catcher, but they just don't target him. So that tight end room is, I would just say, very disciplined, and they do their job. And I think for somebody like Mike, having that reliability, coming off your reads and just knowing somebody's going to be there, you can lead with some anticipation. So, I love that room. I think that 3 of those touchdowns came in one game, so it's a little skewed there. But last year they struggled mightily to score touchdowns in the red zone, and I think they're utilizing the run game and Westy and those tight ends in the red zone a lot better.
Okay. Oregon's offensive line was, probably the best in the country last season. They gave up just 1 sack through the first 8 games of the season. This season, the Ducks were placed 4 out of 5 on the offensive line. It was somewhat of a question mark heading into the season. Well, so far, the Ducks line this year has lived up to expectations for compared to last year's group. They've only given up 3 total sacks in 5 games, which is pretty good. I noticed the Husky team has a pretty dominant O-line as well, giving up 3 sacks all year. Keeping your quarterback on his feet is a key for success. Both these teams do it really well. Who are some of these guys on the offensive line that lead the way for the Huskies?
Not only sacks, too. I believe I can't remember the exact ranking, but I believe it's Oregon who has the least amount of pressures on Nix in the country, and I think Mike is like 6th. I think Nix is like 16, and Mike is like 33 overall pressures. So not even just sacks, but even getting him off his spot. Both of these quarterbacks off their spot. Now I'll say it's going to be difficult. Now I'll say in regards to our offensive line, we got 2 day 2 picks at tackle. Not concerned about just want to be honest. Any of you, I'm not concerned at all about any of your edge players, and that's with all due respect. Not concerned about any of them, just because of the tackle talent. Now, interior wise, you guys have the experience and talent advantage. So that's what kind of makes me concerned, is those nuanced moves, those types of things you're catching. We got a 275-pound center who has a phenomenal anchor. Phenomenal anchor, is going to be a drafted player in 3-4 years. But right now he can be manipulated a little bit, by dudes who are 5th-year players like Dorless, or dudes who are, I think, 5th or 6th-year players like Casey Rogers, like Poe as well. So I think you can kind of have that experience, take advantage of some of that center and guard play. So I think that's going to be the matchup to watch on our offensive line versus your defensive line for sure.
100% for the Ducks. Our offensive line and matchup that I'm going to be watching really well is we got that Josh Connolly Jr., our offensive tackle. This is his first big game in a hostile environment. Now he played in Texas Tech on week 2 and he had a couple false starts. He hasn't played anyone near the level of Braylon Trice, so I'm excited to see how he handles that. That's one matchup that for Duck fans we're gonna have to watch for sure.
That's probably the matchup of the game.
100%. That's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
All eyes on that. All right. So we both know the Huskies and Ducks can score the ball. The big question is, which defense is going to stop whose offense? Like I said, the Ducks and Dan Lanning have made massive strides in the defensive side of the ball this year, coming in with a top 10 total defense. Let's take a look at the defensive squad this season. Washington is 62nd in total defense. The defense has looked really impressive in started games, but from time to time, when Washington gets lead and it's garbage time, it seems like the Huskies seem to give up some yards, miss some tackles, and especially against Arizona, it kind of showed a little bit. Now, giving credit where it's due, at the start of games, you guys have completely shut down teams that you've played, and they do their thing. Where do you think? What's your take on this defense overall, and what are some things you think that need to show up heading into this matchup?
So in regards to I think last year I'm a huge DB coach, training, all that kind of stuff. I was very, I was frustrated all last year. And especially after you're getting spoiled with, Jimmy Lake and his program. I was very frustrated last year. But I was actually just trying to look up Jabbar Muhammad's, some of Jabbar Muhammad's targets and snaps. But he's actually been playing like one of the best corners in the country. Now he's diminutive in stature, I believe about 5'8". But he's been locking down the field for sure. So, and the one thing I did see an Oregon fan posted recently was we've had a pass interference in every single game. The only Pac-12 school to have that, and then there's like 9 total. So, but I will say that I feel like we've not gotten in. A lot of them actually weren't, in my opinion. We've kind of not had the benefit of the doubt there. But those plays last year would have been more. Those plays last year would have been big chunk plays, and the fact that you're even there to be able to make a play on the ball, we're seeing DBs turn their heads and play the ball. That stuff didn't even exist last year, and that's 101 DB stuff. So I definitely think that, we took the next step for sure. But it's not just Muhammad. We got Elijah Jackson on the other side, Thaddeus Dixon as well. And then at safety, I think is where, we have some significant depth at safety, and it's versatility at safety. Last year, Mish Powell was one of our corners. He's now a hybrid safety. Dom Hampton was the hybrid kind of slot, the slot Husky, which where Mish is at now. So that kind of run support DB, kind of the way you guys use Ev Williams. Now Dom is playing his natural true position at strong safety. This is 3 years a corner, 2 years of this Husky position, and then 1 year at the safety, or 2 years at corner, 2 years at the Husky, and then 1 year at safety. So extremely versatile, and probably the most sure tackler on the team. 6'2", 225 pounds, one of the faster players in miles per hour on the team. Definitely a problem. I believe we get Asa back this game, and if we get Asa back, I'm gonna be excited to see how they use him, because the guy that's fit in for him is one of the, in regards to PFF grades and grading in general, is one of the best safeties in the country. Just by those grades. Now, I'm not saying that's what he is, but just by their grading system, he's one of the best safeties in the country. So it kind of makes me curious how they're going to use Asa when he comes back. Are they going to have him at the, LOS, or, is he going to go back to his overhang position and then Nunley comes down? We got Michaela Steen there as well. Cameron Fabiculanen. That's 4, 5, 6 safeties that I mentioned that can match up with tight ends, can match up with receivers in the slot. And one thing that's very important is Michelle Powell is extremely smart. He's a guy who we're going to really rely on in the run game as a DB, as well as the screen game. So, man, I'm really confident in regards to pass coverage. But holistically, our defense is really going to need to tackle better and key in on the run for sure.
100%. We got my man Hood Husky here. We're continuing on with our preview of number 8 Oregon at number 7 Washington. If you guys really love the show here, we're covering all things Oregon football on the DuckZone503 podcast, plus Pac-12. Next year, we're going to be changing that to Big Ten, of course. If you guys want to support the podcast in any type of way, here's your way to do it right here. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Dominiqk Peterson, host of the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Very excited to announce we just launched our very first merch store. Men's and women's t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, stickers, phone cases, mugs, and cups are all sold at DuckZone503.creator-spring.com. If you want to go grab one of those today, that's DuckZone503.creator-spring.com. Store link will be in the description below as well. Yeah, man. You guys know what to do. Go hit that store link description if you guys want to show some support. Got some crazy merch going on, and it's only lasting for this season, and then it's history. So go get it while it lasts. We'll have some new ones next season. All right, let's get into it. 3 keys to the game. All right, Hood, we got to make this quick because we got 10 minutes to do this. So we'll try to go as quick as possible. We're going to give it 3 keys of the game. We're going to give final score prediction. Let's do it. So my 3 keys of the game. Number 1, Get pressure on Penix. I'm sure there's a big key for Washington as well. I want to see 5+ sacks on Penix. This is probably the biggest key in the game for both teams. I'll tell you right now, whoever finishes with more sacks in this game will most likely be your winner. Penix finished last year's game with over 400+ yards passing because why? The Ducks simply could not get a finger on Penix. If the Ducks want to win in Seattle, they will have to do something they've been doing all year, and that's getting pressure on the quarterback, creating havoc. Like I said, they have 18 sacks this season already through 5 games. They finished with 18 sacks just all of last year. Look, Mateo Uiagalelei, Tatum Toyota, Jordan Birch, former 5-star. We got 5-star out of the prospect with Mateo. 4-star Tatum Toyota has been a great surprise. I know you said you don't really respect the edges for Oregon. Last year, you can say that. This year's a total different story. I'm telling you now, the depth, the rotation, those guys are talented enough and they're freshmen enough to play and they're good. I get your tackles are really good. It's going to be a true test, but I think that's what makes the difference for this Oregon defensive line. Then you bring back guys like Brandon Doros, Casey Rogers, those experienced guys. So I think the difference will be the D-line. That's my key one. I want to see 5 sacks. Number 2, win the turnover battle. In games like these, where both teams appear to be virtually equal to each other, turnovers are everything in tight games. If the Ducks want to steal one on the road, they're going to have to steal the ball 1 or 2 more times. And the number 3, I got run, baby, run the football. Bucky Irving finished with 19 carries and 143 yards last year in this matchup. The Ducks simply ran the ball down Washington's throat last season. The Huskies couldn't do anything about it. Running the ball effectively allows you to do 2 things. Number 1, you control the tempo of the game and keep Michael Penix and that electric offense on the sidelines. And then 2, you allow the offense and Bo Nix to open up and be even more dangerous because that defense has to respect that run game. That allows Bo Nix to go on play action and do what he does. So that's my 3 keys of the game. Number 1, get pressure on Penix. Number 2, win the turnover battle. And number 3, run the football. All right, what do you got, Hood? What does Washington need to do to beat the Ducks in Seattle?
For sure. Like I mentioned in regards to our DBs, man, they're going to be extremely important, and as well as our linebackers. They're going to be extremely important in the screen game. Eddie Ulofoshio has kind of been susceptible a little bit with his eyes in regards to the screen game. Want to see a dominant game out of him, as well as Niche Powell in the screen game for sure. The perimeter run defense, I feel like interior-wise, we're going to kind of stuff things up. But I do think that you guys can take advantage of our edges, aggression, and coming up field super hard. I think that's something we haven't really seen Bo take off either. So I feel like that perimeter run defense, stopping Bo in the run games on the edges, as well as stopping your combination of running backs. I do think Jordan James is probably going to be the key for you guys on offense. And then obviously open field tackling. Open field tackling last year was atrocious, and it's why Bucky was able to get busy. I don't feel like Bucky's necessarily taking it easy, but I feel like there's another gear that he has this season that he's kind of not really shown, and I think he's just been waiting for a game like this to kind of do it. So yeah, just open field tackling there and rallying to the ball. If somebody's dragging on a leg, let's get 1 or 2 other cats over there, because it's gonna be hard to bring that man down as well as James. And then just starting fast, man. I think one big thing that's important, I think it was last year, it was the first 6 or 7 games we scored on our first drive. And it really put a lot of defenses on their heels and offenses on their heels. And I think if you can kind of trade 7s for 3s early on, it'd be, 14-6, 14-3 early on, then you kind of put Oregon's offense in a stressful position. They'll have to take more shots. They'll have to be a little bit more risky. And then limiting penalties, man. Arizona we had 12 penalties for, I think, like 130, 125 yards. This team plays fast and physical, and they play confident. It's definitely led to a lot more penalties. I do feel like, and this is just some personal opinion, I do feel like the referees have been a little weird in regards to our games. Fumbles that aren't fumbles, PIs that aren't PIs, holdings that aren't, and that just is what it is. But we got to do the best we can to, keep our hands down, not having hands in the face, releasing people, and not holding them. So on the edges there. So yeah, man, starting fast and limiting penalties there for sure.
I could probably take that key for Oregon too, man. I'm not going to lie, man. Start fast. Our last 2 home games, road games at Texas Tech, slow start. At Stanford, slow start. We can afford to do that against Stanford. Almost bit us in the butt at Texas Tech. Cannot do that at Washington. Got to start fast. And Oregon, They're ranked the top in the nation as most penalized teams. So definitely could take that. All right. Time has come, guys. Let's get into it. We got number 8, Oregon, number 7, Washington. First top 10 matchup in this 125-year rivalry ever. This is the biggest game the rivalry has ever seen. October 14, 2023 will go down in history, folks. Who's going to win this game? Give me the Ducks to win this game. I got Oregon winning 41, Washington 31. I think both these teams are the best teams in the conference, as well as being 2 of the best teams in the country. This could very well be a rematch in the Pac-12 title game. Washington is at home here. They have one of the nation's best passing attacks we've seen in a while. I think Washington can definitely win this game, but I also think the Ducks can win this game as well. They're one of the most balanced teams in the country. They can pass, they can run, and most importantly, this year in particular, they finally have a defense. I've always said as a Duck fan, if the Ducks get themselves a defense, watch out. I think the Ducks have a great defense. I think the Ducks having a great defense is what makes this program be good to great to elite. I think if the Ducks have a good defense, that takes you from competing for Rose Bowls to competing for national championships. When Oregon hired Dan Lanning, who helped architect that historic defense that Georgia had in 2021, I thought it was a home run hire. He's a defensive guru, and he can recruit with the best of them. 2 important things you need as a head coach. On top of that, he's a young guy who can connect with his players. He's definitely a player's coach who everybody wants to play for. In year 2 of Dan Lanning, his defense is top 10 in the country. Under new offensive coordinator Will Stein, number 1 in completion percentage, number 2 in scoring offense, number 2 in total offense, number 2 in rushing offense. Overall, I think the balance of this team is what puts Oregon over the top in this matchup. I think the run game will be able to be successful against Washington's defense. I think Bucky Irving and Jordan James are in for a big day. I think that will allow the Oregon offense to control the tempo of the game. More importantly, I expect Michael Penix Jr. and his wide receivers to make plays, keep the game exciting, keep it back and forth. But overall, I think the Oregon defense does enough, makes enough plays to slow down Michael Penix. And if Oregon can run the ball effectively, I think that's the difference in the game. All right, man. Who do you got?
Oh man, that's hilarious. I saw your score and I was like, I got the game 40-30, bro. So literally a point off. So I sent you. No, you're good, man. I sent you that, and my priority was, I feel like it's going to be a 2-possession game, so a 10+ point win. And then I was kind of trying to figure out, like, is it going to be high scoring or is it going to be like defense? And I was like, no, they're going to score some points. So I switched it up on you. So I'll say I got 40-30. And okay. in regards to game flow, I definitely think, trend is going to be, we're going to get out early. And I think we do.
You got 40-30 Huskies, right? That's what your Huskies win. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Got you.
40-30 Washington. Right. I think the primary thing, man, is home field advantage for sure. That's going to be the primary thing. I don't think anybody in that on that Oregon team has seen an environment like this, because at the end of the day, a lot of Husky fans haven't. But those kids on that team haven't seen this environment. But I got 40-30. UW gets out pretty sizable. I think maybe even by 3 possessions, like 17, 20, something like that. And then in that late mid-third to fourth, they start to make a push, start to make a comeback, threaten the lead, but just kind of fall up short. Maybe a late score by UW, late field goal, 37-30, late field goal by us puts it away, something like that. But to be honest, I don't know how close it's going to be. I don't think I want to say it's not going to be close, but.
Okay, there you guys have it. So 40-30 over here, Washington. I got the Ducks 41-31. That's our final score prediction. We let our 3 kids be known. This is going to be a big-time game. Can't wait for it. I'm going to try to catch up with you on Saturday. Where can we find your work, my guy?
So just YouTube, Neighborhood Husky, and then Hood Husky on Twitter. And then some collaborative work I do with some of my best friends, man. That's going to be Sound the Siren Podcast. You can find that on Apple Music for sure, and I believe still Anchor. So, yeah.
Bam, there you guys go. Appreciate everybody for tuning in once again. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson, host of the DuckZone503 Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe. Rate the podcast on Spotify if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the recap and analysis episode on Sunday, maybe even Monday. We'll see what goes on. Go Ducks. See you in the next episode. Hit that bell. Hit the subscribe.